So I really think what you're going to see sometime before the end of this decade is a huge deflationary crash, and then countries will print their way right into hyperinflation, because what will happen is they'll print and nothing will happen. And they'll print and nothing will happen. Because as they print, people are still scared and they'll save that currency and they won't spend it. And they keep on printing, and in my book I wrote that, you know, like the US government could do helicopter drops. They could refund all the tax that you've ever paid in your entire lifetime. Eventually there will come a time where people say, you know what, I've got enough saved up for retirement and I really deserve a new car, or I really deserve a new big screen TV. And when people start getting comfortable and that currency comes out into circulation and velocity picks up, you can have a hyperinflation without having to have the countries print their currencies into oblivion. And so how does this affect you, and what can you do about it? This is where the opportunity comes, I believe. I believe in a currency crisis, the people that are, there's going to be a wealth transfer. And for every 1,000 people that don't get prepared, the one person that does get prepared is going to reap rewards at a ratio of 1,000 to 1. There's going to be a wealth loss for the people that aren't prepared, and a wealth gain for the people that are prepared, and that it's just a transfer. There's going to be no currency necessarily changing hands, but what you're going to see is the value of currency plummet and the value of precious metals skyrocket. And that is a wealth transfer. And in the United States, there's nothing better that shows it than this graph. This is base money from 1918. The Federal Reserve doesn't supply data before that, all the way until 2 years ago. With QE3, this is up here now, and with the pullback in gold, this is down here. If you could take these lines back here, back to 1913, before the Federal Reserve, they converge. There was an equivalent amount of base money to gold at the Treasury. They expanded that, which was a lie, and then they had problems in the 30s, and there were bank runs. And they revalued gold in 1934 to 35 bucks an ounce, and the value of the gold at the Treasury once again equaled the value of all the paper currency, the base money in circulation. And then we go through World War II, this big expansion for World War II, and North Korea and Vietnam and Johnson's Great Society in the 60s and the 70s. And gold became free trading August 15th of 71. And the will of the public and the free market bid the value of the gold at the Treasury up until it once again equaled the value of all the currency in circulation. The opportunity is the spread between these two. This was the amount of opportunity. And so back in the year 2000, it was the greatest, it's as great an opportunity as existed here in 1970. But now with this pullback and the expansion of the currency supply that we've seen with QE3, we have the greatest opportunity in history laid at your feet right now. I believe that the stocks are a good thing, but I also believe that everybody should have some real physical gold and silver. I don't give advice. I never tell people what to do. But what I do is I buy gold and silver, physical. And so now, in a Kondratiev winter and in currency crisis, what happens is you wake up one day and the opportunity is gone. This is the Russian ruble from 1919 up until today, and there's these enormous revaluations. This is during the Russian Revolution, the revaluations of the currency. But look at the number of revaluations that they've had, and when you see the scale of these revaluations, it's just absolutely mind-boggling how much purchasing power the Russian government kept on stealing from their population. But what happens in a currency crisis, does anybody here, have they heard of long-term capital management? Okay, this was a hedge fund that blew up back in the late 90s, and it just about caused the entire world financial to melt down. We came within hours of everything freezing up and no credit cards working, not being able to get anything out of your bank account, everything being shut down. What happened was Alan Greenspan got a bunch of very smart people and the world's big banks all together to bail out this hedge fund, and everybody found out about it after the deal was put together. When Lehman Brothers melted down, Did you find out about it before it happened, or did you find out about it after the Federal Reserve and the Secretary of the Treasury and everybody got together and came up with a solution, and it was already dissolved, and other banks had Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers? I mean, what happens is there's an emergency, and a very few people keep it secret, and they try and solve the problem, and then you wake up in the morning, problem solved. Well, what happens in a currency revaluation is there's an emergency going on behind the scenes. The public doesn't know about it. A few people get together in a room and they decide that the solution of the problem is to make gold, for instance, in this thing, the coming currency crisis. You might see gold go from where it is to, say, $8,000 an ounce, or $7,000, as Jim Rickards believes, or maybe $15,000 an ounce, like I think might happen. That's what it requires for that base money to cover the currency supply again, is about 15 grand an ounce or higher. And so the revaluations can be blindingly quick, and they can add up to some mind-boggling figures. This is the Russian revaluations. If you went back to Peter the Great, when he established the gold Russian ruble, and then the revaluations that happened during the Russian Revolution, 10,000 to 1, 100 to 1. In other words, your old currency is no longer useful. You have to bring it into the government and exchange 100 Canadian dollars or American dollars or whatever for one of the new currency that the government is coming out with. And then 50,000 to 1. That's 3 revaluations in this short period during the Russian Revolution. Then 10 to 1. Then 10 to 1. And then 1,000 to 1. And when you add all of these together, 1922, 23, 24, 47, 61, and 1998, this went along with the long-term capital management problem. This happened 1 year after the long-term capital management problem, and long-term capital management contributed to the Russian default that caused this currency crisis, where the Russians, they ended up with 0.1% of their purchasing power after this currency conversion. 1,000, you bring in 1,000 of your current Russian rubles that you thought were worth something when you went to bed that night. You get up the next morning, you got to bring them into the bank, and you get to trade those 1,000 for one of the new ones. And what that adds up to is the Russian ruble was devalued 5 quadrillion times over that time frame. This is the amount of theft that governments can perpetrate on their populations. So the opportunity sometimes comes in a bull market that progresses and then peaks, and then you go into a bear market. That's in a Kondratiev summer. In a Kondratiev winter, many times it's a currency crisis that requires an overnight, lightning-fast revaluation, and the opportunity does not exist after that. I believe, though, that what will happen is you're going to see people, if gold did get revalued suddenly to $15,000 an ounce, the opportunity is gone there, but where is silver? So I think right after a revaluation, you would see people flooding into silver.